My name is Reverend Mary Shaver, and I'm here to talk about today allowing ourselves to see and to be seen, to be vulnerable. And I think that song says a lot about that. It's pretty thought provoking, isn't it? I just want to remind you of the lyrics. If this is my last song, if this is my final day, if tomorrow I'll be gone, what do I want to say? Is the world a little more peaceful, oceans and sky a little more blue? Is humankind a bit wiser about the good that we can do? Does the sun shine a bit brighter where before there was only rain? If so, then I'm glad I came. What do I leave behind? What do I pass on if I'm out of time? And it made me think about how I want to be remembered and what I want to leave behind. See, I've been thinking a little bit about death lately, not in a morbid way, but part of the human experience. And perhaps it started with Reverend Jenna's sudden passing. We were friends. I attended her memorial service a few weeks ago, and I learned so much about her, things I didn't know. And I also learned a lot from her. We went to ministerial school at the same time, and at that time they had volumes of cassette tapes that we studied from. And so we had all these volumes of cassette tapes. And I remember talking with her and saying, maybe it's time to let go of this. Maybe we can let go of these cassette tapes because we no longer have a way to play them. And so that was something I learned from her, to let go. And then the other thing I learned was to call now. If you have somebody you want to visit with, call now. Make that appointment now. Visit now. Don't wait. And the other thing is, shortly before she passed, a few months before she passed, she finished her fairy tale book, and she had worked on that for so long. And I'm so glad she got to finish it. And so that's another thing I learned, is to finish what I want to finish. And so all this got me thinking about how I remember her, and from that, how I want to be remembered. There is a Stoic principle called memento mori. It's Latin for remember that you die. And so often we just want to forget that part, right? We want to forget not only that we die, but people around us do. Everybody wants to go to heaven and nobody wants to die. But this memento mori reminds us that realizing our time is short helps us focus and appreciate what we have. So life is precious because it is fragile. And without death, life might be meaningless. The concept of death has grown into something we dread. Death is most people's biggest fear, right next to public speaking. They see it as the end, and some people see public speaking as the end too. And I was thinking about this. Every day we pass our birthday and we remember, oh yes, we were born that day. But every year we also pass the death day, and we have no clue. So we know things are born, live for a while, then die. It's a cycle of life. And I go back to what Ernest Holmes says about this. He says, nature will not let us stay in any one place too long. She'll let us stay just long enough to gather the experience necessary to the unfolding and advancement of the soul. This is a wise provision, for should we stay here too long, we would become too set, too rigid, too inflexible. Nature demands the change in order that we may advance. And when that change comes, we should welcome it with a smile on the lips and a song in the heart. Well, I don't know so much about that part. But what I do know is that this body gets left behind, and we get left behind, and it's very sad. And I should have warned you to bring a handkerchief today, because we all lose loved ones. People, pets, And by this time in my life, I know I've lost my parents, a sister, a brother, a sister-in-law, friends, and I know that you've lost many people too. And it's human to grieve over the loss of dear ones. We love them and we can't help but missing them. And a true realization of the immortality and continuity of the individual soul allows us hope. We realize that we are in the divine life flow. And Ernest Holmes tells us this also. He says, "We shall know that loving friends have met them, and their life still flows on with currents of eternity. And we shall feel that we have not lost them, they have only gone before." So we shall view eternity from the higher standpoint as a continuity of time forever and ever expanding until time, as we experience it now, shall be no longer. I remember a friend that passed away rather suddenly in his sleep many years ago. And after the funeral, I thought, okay, I'm going to, in meditation, encourage this soul. And as I connected with him, I received a message back. And the message was, "How long do I have to stay in this box?" At which point I explained in my meditation that he was free to go on to his next expression. And so this is us being of service to allow people to know there is more. There is more than this body. There is more than this box. Again, Ernest Holmes tells us death is but the shifting of a scene, the moving of one place to another, an impatient gesture of the soul as it seeks its freedom. So, what I know is that there is hope. And one of the things when we were celebrating the life of Jenna, one of the things that I read was a passage from Science of Mind, which gives me solace. And I'd like to share it with you now because it talks about our friends and our eternal life. It says, when we came into this life, we were met by loving friends who cared for us until we were able to care for ourselves. And judging the future by the past, we can believe that when we enter the larger life, there will be loving hands to greet us and loving friends to care for us until we become accustomed to our new surroundings. So, this is a really tough topic. And some of you might have noticed that I've been a bit subdued lately and perhaps a little distracted. And it's because we lost our dog. And I've been sad. And I've allowed myself to feel the sadness and to be gentle with myself. And what I know without a doubt is that, as Teresa read in the Zen story, we're not the only ones. We all go through this. We lose people. We lose loved ones. And we're not the only ones that even lost a dog lately. Rob was at a gathering of 8 people last week, and 2 others besides him lost a pet in the last month. I spoke with a dear friend yesterday, and her daughter lost a beloved pet earlier this year, and I'm sure you know others. And somehow it helps that we're not alone in our grief. And so you may be wondering what all of this has to do with the topic for today. Well, our topic for the month is vulnerability. And I thought, what the heck? Maybe I could practice it instead of just talking about it, which for me is a stretch because I am the queen of developing protective armor. I have the shiniest armor, let me tell you. So for me to be vulnerable is really a stretch. Can I show my sadness? Can I talk about something like death in a place where ordinarily we are upbeat and happy and joyful? But I think this is a topic we can talk about. And seeing and being seen is just one of our greatest challenges. And yet, that's something everybody wants, to love and to be loved, to be seen as we truly are, and to be accepted as we are. And this takes vulnerability. And so all month as we're talking about this, well, last week we embarked on it with a step of defining and gaining clarity around what vulnerability is and why it's important. And Reverend Veronica talked to us about that, and we shared our own vulnerabilities. And then today we're going to explore what gets in the way of being vulnerable and how we might navigate this path. And it's often said that we talk about what we most need to learn, and I certainly need to learn this. So bear with me as we explore how authenticity, connection, belonging are possible, are enhanced when we're able to bring our whole self to the life. And this is what allows us to live life out loud, which is our theme for the year. So let's take a short look. What gets in the way of vulnerability? Well, what gets in the way of everything? Fear, uncertainty, uh, comparison are some of the many things that we arise when, we set the intention of living a life from an authentic space. And these are not some things to push against, but opportunities to lean into and befriend. It is through understanding that we can use the experience as a guide on a greater awareness of ourselves and of our others. See, Ernest Holmes writes this. He says, there's something within you beyond all doubt and fear, something which has never been limited by your acts or destroyed by your feeling. And this is the only something that can make you whole. Science of Mind teaches there's something within us that's never been affected by fear, uncertainty, comparison. This is the place, it's the home of spirit, that individualized expression that resides within us all. And Lisa started this with, my soul is welcome here. Your soul is welcome here. This is the home of spirit where all is well, nothing, not fear, not uncertainty, not comparison lives there. It is the space, it is the birthplace of vulnerability and authenticity. It is that gentle, creative urge that propels us forward into deeper and deeper expressions of ourselves. Perhaps you felt this. And perhaps like me, you've resisted it for years. So this space makes room for fear and uncertainty and meets it with divine love. That fear is a powerful barrier, and it can seem like a chasm we can't get across. And it can be experienced in different ways for different people. Fear of what others may think, fear of trying something new, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, shame and blame, maybe some places we go. And, for some, individual societal framework may contribute to the fear and impact the vulnerability. But fear, although not always pleasant and maybe not ever pleasant, I don't know, can be a helpful emotion that sheds light on our lives that require a closer look. And it also shines light on areas within our communities and society where changes are needed in order to create safe spaces. So we have fear, we have uncertainty. To be vulnerable is to become friends with uncertainty. We love certainty. I love certainty. I like to know, I like to plan things, I like to know where things are going. And the hint of uncertainty stops me in my tracks. I want a plan. I want a backup plan and then a backup plan for the backup plan. And this can go on endlessly. And it means I'm not willing to take risks, to be vulnerable. Whew. Uncertainty is part of the wholeness of life itself. We can choose to see it as a barrier, or we can meet it with curiosity and move. I just love people who are curious. It's just amazing, the curiosity. I was in the actually at the Y in the changing room, and there's this little 5-year-old girl in there. She's asking her mother, why? And, of course, the mother is trying to say, well, because this and because that, but that curiosity, wow. So when we're curious, then we find out things and we learn to move in ways that are in alignment with that truth of who we are. And then we find the cracks that uncertainty often brings are paved over with awareness. This awareness opens the door and invites us to step through. So fear, uncertainty, comparison. Oh my gosh, not that we're necessarily comparing ourselves with others, or the fear that they're comparing themselves with us, or the fear that they're comparing us with someone else, or our absolute who we could be, potential. You have high potential. Oh, isn't that scary? Comparison. It doesn't take much to see how this can greatly impact our willingness or our ability to safely show up just as we are. We want to blend in. We don't want to be too much, whatever that may mean. And this sometimes holds us back, or we start to play small because we don't want to be too much. And so the opportunity comes up to look at where we're doing that and to explore how we can use vulnerability to harness the magnificence of our authentic selves. So I want to take a moment now to do what in past days we would have called a responsive reading. And I will show you your part in a slide. And this is something that we're going to do as far as, just keep yourselves on mute and we'll be sharing this. Let me see, I want to share. Okay. It looks, no, I'm not sharing the right thing. Okay, I'm going to stop the share and start over again because I didn't do that right. Oh my gosh, to be making mistakes. That's one of the vulnerability things, isn't it? Okay, now I'm sharing the right thing. This is the statement. It says, we let go of who we think we ought to be and embrace who we are. And this is something that comes out of the work of Brene Brown, who we heard from last week. And this is your part. And I'm going to read the other part. Actually, I'll be reading both of them. But let's do this. Let's do it from the heart. And this is a litany of wholeheartedness by Dawn Cooley. Because there have been times when shame has crushed our ability to be wholehearted, we let go of who we think we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we've not always had the courage to be imperfect, we let go of who we think we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we have struggled to have compassion for ourselves and others, we let go of who we think we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we have been afraid of our own vulnerability, we let go of who we think we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we are sometimes too scared to live authentically, we let go of who we think we ought to be and embrace who we are. Because we want to be wholehearted people, confident in our worthiness and our belonging, we let go of who we think we ought to be and embrace who we are. We see in each other the reflection or the manifestation of the everlasting life. Ernest Holmes tells us each is an individual embodiment of it. Remember, the kingdom of heaven is already within us. We are within it. It is only as we are in harmony with that we awake to it. So choosing to be vulnerable enough to express our authentic selves is not always easy. Whew. However, the choice becomes whether or not we allow ourselves to be limited by the experiences that attempt or that formerly stood in the way of us showing up as our true selves. To be willing to look them in the face and then move anyway. Rumi said, move, but don't move the way fear makes you move. Let us move from our authentic selves. So Ernest Holmes said, we believe in God, the living spirit almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. This is from the Declaration of Principles. So that divine spirit lives in us. It is who and what we are. It is authentic, and yet we allow that fear. We allow comparison. We allow that hesitation in our lives to stop us from being vulnerable. Now, we are all in spirit. We are all that divine love. We are one. We talk about we are one. But oneness doesn't mean sameness. Instead, it is an understanding that the world is an individualized expression of that one. And we are all our own unique configuration of the divine expression in this moment. And when we are able to grasp this understanding, we can more clearly recognize this truth in others. And we begin to see the power of vulnerability as a way of nurturing, belonging, connecting. We see ourselves. And this is what our community is about: vulnerability, authenticity, where it's nurtured. And then it's important to understand too the role of personal reflection and responsibility. And sometimes that means feeling, I'm sad, or wow, I really messed up there, or I'm sorry, I should have listened or communicated differently. I liked what Reverend Veronica said last week about our prickly peculiarities. I noticed I have some of those. And this level of vulnerability requires us to be willing to see life from a variety of angles and understand how our thoughts, our words, our actions may directly impact others. And when we're called to expand our awareness of connection with the whole, then we bolster a sense of connection and belonging. Emotions are messages. Feel it, but don't feed it. And once we're able to see ourselves, then we can see others. In James Cameron's movie Avatar, the phrase, I see you, was used as a greeting on Pandora. And what I got from that was that the phrase was to truly see into someone's true essence. It's not just, oh, I see you're over there. No, I see you. And seeing others doesn't mean seeing them as we think they should be or what they may be in the future. It requires present moment. To see not through the lens of judgment or comparison, but through the gentle gaze of awareness that, just like us, each person we see is a unique expression of the one. Each person has had loss in their lives. Each person has dreams. Each is a unique expression of that one. And when we begin to practice seeing others, the result is community and spaces where we're invited to show up authentically in all our messiness. And though we create a vibration of acceptance, through this we create a vibration of acceptance, which invites us and makes space for vulnerability. The importance of I see you embodies how the Navi on Avatar perceive each other, not only literally seeing them, but seeing them as they truly are in a spiritual sense. And it also, for example, in Avatar, The Way of the Water, when Jake is greeted with the phrase, I see you, it signifies that he is fully assimilated into the Na'vi way of life, and he is recognized by the Na'vi elders as a member of the community. What would it be like if we could say to each other, I see you, I see you, perfect, whole, and complete, just as you are. See, when we allow ourselves to be seen and we invite others to do the same, we find a beautiful way to create community. And this isn't just achieved with words alone, but through connection, belonging, through intentional action. And that's not to say we always get it right. I certainly don't always get it right. Vulnerability makes space for us to try. Maybe we miss, maybe we try again. It invites us to listen, not waiting for the opportunity to fix or prove ourselves right, but listening to understand and connect. We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known, and when we honor the spiritual connection that grows from offering with trust, respect, and kindness and affection. That's from Brene Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection. So, vulnerability is not a one dimensional concept. It requires both internal awareness, external practice, just like with any new activity or concept. It takes practice and then more practice. We're called to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, to recognize the value of vulnerability and to begin to create space in our lives and communities for it to live. This requires looking at ourselves and others from an expanded view, seeing the connection is present and creating the space for that connection to thrive. Around the world, for thousands of years, members of our human family have found ways to say, I see you. You are not alone. Others have journeyed the place where you find yourselves now. So let us give one another strength, courage, and love. Let us allow ourselves to see and to be seen. And let us take this thought into our meditation today. Just knowing the truth as we go within, feeling that deep part of yourself that is always home. And breathing in deeply, dropping in further to that heart space, relaxing into it, finding your soul, your heart, yourself. Every part of you is here. The light, the dark, the dreams, the fears. And so right here, right now, let us be open. Let us be present with love. And so imagine your heart opening, releasing all of you out into the world. And just watch those pieces float away. Any memories of pain, any moments of shame, the visions of joy, all are part of you. Look past your fears of what others will say or do and just see the love the connection, the light. See the comfort your truth brings to others, even as it slides past the judgments from others. And allow your body to vibrate with aliveness as it receives back the love, expanding even more. And in this feeling of love, this vulnerable openness of your heart, there is truth, there is beauty, there is authenticity, there is the divine itself. And so allow yourself to bring that love forward into your conscious awareness and come back into this room with a new freedom, a new understanding. Your soul is welcome here. And so it is.